Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 126. Today I'm going to talk about Tammany Hall. This was a Kickstarter game which I backed. It was originally from Stratomax Games and now it's from Pandasaurus Games. So it plays 3 to 5 players and it's sort of a traditional area control game. You kind of take control of these different precincts or sectors and try to win votes, so to speak, in the different areas. And then there's a lot of backstabbing. And not even backstabbing, it's more like front stabbing, because there's no behind the back in this game. It's actually very much in your face. It has a few unique sort of qualities about it that really kind of push it over the edge for me. It has sort of this built-in scaling, so you can play this from 3 to 5 players, and it plays equally well with all of that. So the board kind of grows based on the number of players and sort of as the game moves along, the available area that you can actually do anything in. So that's a really nice aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that is interesting, and I know I'm reviewing it before I'm doing the walkthrough, but it has this ability, so every 4 turns you have an election and then somebody's elected mayor. Well then they basically get some bonus points for being mayor, and then they have to go first every turn, which is not a good thing. But the other thing that they have to do is actually hand out these different offices in the town in New York. So like one guy's a sheriff and one guy's a precinct committee man or whatever it's called. And so you basically have to give everybody else the tools to beat you. So that's actually kind of a really neat aspect. So the game has sort of a lot of theme in it, but it's pretty abstract. So I think that's going to throw people off. So theme is not really driven by any sort of extra chrome. There's not a ton of chrome in this game. There's some very subtle chrome, I would say. But the theme of politics and curmudgeonly backstabbing-ness is in the game in spades. There's not necessarily a theme of, okay, this was in New York in the later part of the 1800s or early 1900s, and it's that kind of stuff. It kind of comes across a little bit, the actual sort of historical theme, but the theme of immigrants coming in and manipulation of the immigrants and sort of the back and forth, stabbing each other, that comes across in spades. And the mechanics are very, very streamlined and well done. So let me show you how it plays. Okay, I got everything all set up here, and I just wanted to make a quick comment about the components in this game. And the components are actually stellar. Now, I can't make you touch this board, but this is a very, very sturdy board. I think that you can see that everything's very clearly delineated. Actually, all of the rules pretty much are all on the board here, yet the board still looks, I think, very pleasing. And I can't say enough about the quality of the material of the board. I'm not sure what it's made out of or anything, but it's really nice. And then we've also got these political favor chips, and I believe that the original didn't come with stickers. And so these represent different nationalities, and you can sticker them, like here's Germany, and then we've got Britain there, and then Italy in blue, and then the Irish here in the green. And then another new addition, I believe, are these character cards here, these office cards. And you can see I've got these lined up on the side there. I believe in the original game you would take and place one of your player markers when you got an office, and you would just put it there to kind of show which office you had for that round. But it's kind of nice to pass these out to everybody. You can easily tell who has what, and then most of these you can use once per turn, so you can just flip it over to remind yourself that you've used it. So what are players trying to do? Well, basically what they're trying to do is get a majority in each of these different precincts or sectors. And now you can see here we've got basically 3 main areas of the board broken up into multiple sectors. So if you can see this thick black line here, this is the first sector here, or the first region. And so in a 3-player game, you're only going to be able to place your little workers or your ward bosses out in these areas for the first 4 turns. Then in a 4-player game, you can see we've got this other thick black line here. For area 2, you can only place in this area to start the game. And then in a 5-player game, all of these are in play. You can see here we've got area 3 here. So in a 3-player game, we'll be able to place here first, and then we'll have an election. And then you'll be able to place here, and you'll have another election, and then you'll be able to place ward bosses out in the whole board here. So it does a good job of scaling the game from all player counts. And the cool thing is that a lot of these early areas here are going to give you sort of special abilities that will influence later evaluations of who has the most control. So let me start to talk about how a turn will work. So before you play the game, you're going to set these little boxes up and you're going to put the cubes in there that it tells you to put in there. And then based on the number of players, you're going to take these out and then randomly seed the different sectors. So you can see here I've got sector 1. So let's say we're just playing a 3-player game. I'm going to just randomly drop one of these cubes in each sector here. So if I were playing a 4-player game, I would take these and I would drop these out randomly as well in the second region of the game. But if in a 3-player game, again, you just do the first sector, and then once we have, you can see up here, an election after the 4th turn, then that's going to activate sector 2 for a 3-player game. And again, this is nicely delineated out here, so you know there's no question about when things are going to happen here during the turn track. Now the first thing players are going to do on the turn is check this castle garden. And if it's empty, then you're going to refill it with cubes from this bag here. And that's going to be the number of players plus 2. So in a 3-player game, we'll put out 5 cubes, like so. And then there we go. And if you'll notice, these Italian cubes here, they will only come out here. They don't get seeded at the beginning of the game. So for the first 4 turns, your turns are going to be very simple. You basically have one thing that you can do. And you have basically 2 ways to do it. You're going to be placing these ward bosses in these areas to get control. So you have 2 ways to do that. You can either place 2 ward bosses, and you can place them in the same area or in different areas. Or you could place 1 ward boss and then 1 cube. And you can place that cube with the ward boss or somewhere else. And then you're going to take a political favor chip. So let's say I place this green cube here with me. So I put my ward boss there and I put him there. Then I'll take a green political favor chip here and I keep that in front of me. And this is open information. Everybody needs to know how much you have. And that's it. The first 4 turns are just going to be placing ward bosses and or cubes and then taking political favor chips. So the first 4 turns are going to go pretty smoothly and pretty quickly. And then you're going to have an election, and then you're going to evaluate all of these sectors to see who has the most influence. So let's evaluate one of these areas here and see how we decide who's going to win sort of this election and this award here. So the red player and the white player each have ward bosses here. The red's got 2, white's got 1. So right away, red has a lead over the white player. They have an advantage. However, that's not the only determining factor. So for argument's sake, let's say red has 1 green political favor chip and then white has 2. So they'll let each other know what they have before we decide. And you're going to only consider political favor chips of matching the cubes that are in that sector. So if anybody had a white one here, that's not really going to be considered because there's no white cubes there. So red's got a green chip, white's got 2 orange chips. And so they're going to take and then they're going to hide these and they're going to blind bid with these and then reveal them. Well, if we revealed it like this, white actually used both chips and then red used 1, they're both going to total up to 3 because you're going to count red's chip plus his 2 ward bosses and then you're going to count white's ward boss plus his 2 chips. So it's 3 to 3. In that case, nobody wins. Everybody loses their chips. These go back into each player's supply and then we move on. But let's say red didn't really want to play this political favor chip. He wanted to use it for an election later on. Then white would win. Red would remove all of his workers. White would leave all of his, or remove all of his except for 1. In this case, he only has the 1. And so he would get a victory point, and then he would win that sector. Now if you see here, you've got these arrows like so. So you're always going to score the first area and then go in the order that the arrows go, and then you can do the second area and then do the order of the arrows that way. So it's also the order of the elections is going to be very important. And a couple of these first areas here will give you a special ability here. So these first 2 will let you take any cube that you want and put it anywhere on the board. So that also is going to change the outcome of the election. So if you had a bunch of blue chips, but you were in an area that didn't have any, so let's say white was here for argument's sake, he's got a bunch of blue political favor chips and only 1 ward boss. He could go and place that blue in there, and then now he's allowed to spend those political favor chips there. So these first areas can be somewhat dramatic. And so the next 2 areas here, 4 and 7, these will allow you to take any political favor chip of your choice. So you just go ahead and take one that you want. Now there's one exception here, is this is Tammany Hall in the middle, and all this does is give you 2 points instead of 1 point. So after we've gone through and resolved all the sectors, the precincts with the elections, you're going to see how many cubes people have in areas that they control and of what type the cube is. So if you look here, we've got red and red here. So they have 2 orange cubes, a green, a blue, and a white. And then the white player has an orange, a green, another green, and a blue. So you're going to total all of the cubes that you quote-unquote control, and then if you have the most green, let's say. So here red only has one green. He's not in any other areas where there's a green. But white's got two greens here and here. So he has the most, let's say, for argument's sake. And then he's going to get 3 of that color. So if you have the most, you get 3 political favorite chips of that color. In this case, let's say red is the only one with a white cube, which would be, pretty rare and probably impossible. So they would get 3 white chips. In this case, there's a tie for blue. White and red are each have 1 cube. So they would each get 3 political favorite chips. So after we figure out who has the most and the different immigrants, then we're going to see who the mayor is. And simply the mayor is whoever has the most areas that they physically control. And if there's a tie, and that's definitely going to happen pretty frequently, then you're going to see who has the most total political favorite chips. And then if there's still a tie, you'll see who has the most green, the most white, the most orange, and the most blue. I've never seen it get past most political favorite chips, but you're definitely going to have a tie. So whoever ends up being mayor will get the mayor card, and they're going to get +3 victory points right away. And then they're going to start the round. And like I said before, starting the round is not actually the best thing because I'll show you a little bit later, but there's some damage that you can do. So you kind of want to be able to wait and see, what other people have done, and then kind of come in at the last second. So the first thing the mayor's going to do is he's going to pass out these other roles here. So let me talk about these roles. So there's 4 other roles. So if you're playing with less than 5, not all of these will be in play. So let's look at this first one, the chief of police. So he's allowed once per turn to remove an immigrant from any of the sectors here, but you can never remove the last one. Okay, so that's what he can do. And then the precinct chairman here, you may move 1 immigrant cube to an adjacent ward each turn, and that's also kind of nice, but you can never remove the last one, so you can just move this one here to here. The next guy here, a deputy mayor, you can gain 1 political favorite chip of any color each turn, so you can just take and then, grab a chip. So that's also nice. And then this one is council president. You may choose to lock up a ward twice a term, and that's every 4 rounds. So you can only do this twice between each election. So no ward bosses or immigrant groups may be added or removed from the locked up ward. And so you give him these little tokens here. He puts that in here, probably where he's got an advantage. Basically locks that up, hopefully, and then nobody else can go and try to win that. So you can see all of these are relatively strong and go a long ways into sort of breaking the game a little bit. So as the mayor, who just did really well in the last election and got a bonus point, bonus 3 points, he then has to hand out the tools to his demise to everybody else. So the first 4 turns are very easy. You're just going to put guys out, and then you're going to have an election. You're going to score points for each ward that you're in, 2 points for Tammany Hall. You're going to pass out political favorite chips. Whoever has the most zones under their controls gets mayor, passes out all of the rolls. And then we're going to wipe out any of these that are left in the castle garden, and then we're going to refill it with the bag. So again, 3-player game, you just number of players +2, and then we start the next round. Now this is where things get interesting. Turn 5 is where things start to get really interesting. Because now not only do you just place ward bosses and maybe cubes out on the board, you've also got the abilities of your offices that you have. Unless you're the mayor gets no special ability. And then now you have 3 slander chips that you can play with. So once per election, so basically once every 4 turns, you can spend 1 of these slander chips. So now on your turn, you have basically 3 things you can do. And you can do them in any order that you wish. So you can, again, place 2 ward bosses or place a ward boss and a cube and then take a political favor chip. You can use your ability on your card. Or you can slander somebody. So how do you slander somebody? Well, the first thing you're going to do is have to spend 1 of these chips. And if you hold these till the end of the game, they're each worth a point. So let's say I'm the white player here, and I want to slander red. And basically what that's going to mean is I want to get rid of 1 of his ward bosses. I'll spend this chip, and then I have to discard a political favor chip that matches the color of 1 of the cubes in there. So I can discard a green one, and then I can get rid of him. And that's typically what you're going to do. But when you slander somebody, you have the possibility of actually being able to slander the same player twice, as long as you and them are in adjacent spaces like this. So if I slandered him here first, I could slander in this zone and then move over to an adjacent space where both of us have ward bosses and then slander him again, only him. You can only slander 1 player. So you can only really piss somebody off once. You can't piss everybody off. So you can all do that by just spending 1 slander token. Let's say I wanted to do a second zone here. So I could target red again, And then this time for the second one, I've got to spend 2 political favor chips matching one of the cubes in that zone. So maybe I spend 2 whites and I remove one of his. And now we're down to more of a fair fight. And that's it. So basically now you can displace ward bosses, you can slander, you can use your ability, and then we're going to keep going. So every 4 turns we're going to have another election, maybe a new mayor elected, maybe not, and then we do another 4 and another 4, we do a final election, and then we have sort of an end of game scoring. So again, at the end of the election, the mayor gets +3 points, Tammany Hall gets another 2 points, and then each other ward gets +1, and then most immigrant cubes, you pass those out. And then at the end of the game, the most chips of a given color gains 2 points. So if I had the most white, I get 2 points. And then all tied players get 2 points, and then each slander unused is worth a victory point. And that's the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. This is such a fantastic game. It's really, really fun. This is a game that you have to go into. You've got to be willing to trash talk right out of the gate, because you're just basically going to be smashing the leader the whole time. You're going to be smashing people that look like they're about to be in the lead. You're going to have sort of alliances sort of come and go very quickly. But it plays really quick, it's really smooth, and it's just very, very fun. The whole thing, the best part of the game is the election. So you have your sort of jockeying for control and sort of trying to be a little bit catty and sort of light on your feet, and that's really great, and it's very, very evocative of like El Grande and things like that, your traditional area control games. But then passing out those roles to people is really, really fun, because they're all pretty good, and you don't really want to give anybody anything at all, but you have to. So it's just, I don't know, it's just great. People kind of argue, don't give him that, because he doesn't have very many political favor chips. If you give him that, then he's going to be able to compete now. Or he's already got a ton of these, so he's going to lock up the political favors of white or something. So you can really kind of negotiate back and forth. And if you go into it with that sort of lighthearted attitude, I think people will really, really enjoy this game. And I highly recommend it. The components and everything are just fantastic. So, I'm just going to keep going off and on about it and tell you how fun it is. And like I said at the beginning, there's not a lot of extra chrome as far as like, the different nationalities don't do anything really different. I mean, the Italians kind of come out later because they did come later in the historical sense. There's a couple little minor things like that, and the different abilities of the characters and things like that. But it's really cool because it's one of those things where, like, yeah, if you want to talk about theme, this game has theme. It has tons of theme, because it's the theme of the game is not Tammany Hall. That's the setting of the game. The theme of the game is screwing each other over, but then having to pass out those roles to get yourself screwed over if you're the mayor. So the theme of the game is more like on a psychological level than like a historical level. So keep that in mind. Okay, so thanks.